All right, what up, YouTube? We're back for football season, and specifically fantasy football season. Um, my fantasy football draft is ridiculously delayed, and it is tonight. So, for all of you out there who have not done your fantasy draft yet, or want to see how a very loosely informed fourth place finisher in his league last year gets to do it, we're going to do some practice drafts. So I am drafting from the sixth pick. So we're going to do that first. And then if we're feeling it, we'll go into some more detail there uh, with some different picks. Um, some general guidelines. I'll go through it round by round, but for the first round, what you want is a consistent workhorse. You want someone who's going to be hopefully right top five at their position. Um, so I'm the sixth pick. Honestly, between Gibbs and Lamb, I could go either way. They're projected about the same. I think Detroit's offense is due for a little bit of regression because they lost Ben Johnson. I think Gibbs will still be good, but I'm going to go ahead and take CeeDee Lamb. I'm not mad at a Jahmyr Gibbs pick here, um, but Lamb has been very consistent. He'll fit into kind of the same role. Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't know if he's going to take over a more consistent sort of top role um, over David Montgomery, and I don't know how he's going to stand up to that. Not the biggest guy. I don't know if he's prepped to be an every down back. Here I could take Jonathan Taylor. I'm gonna take Brock Bowers here. I think Brock Bowers is a league winner in the second round. He is by far the best tight end from a fantasy perspective in the league. I think his production is set to even improve with a better quarterback like Geno Smith. Um, so I think Bowers is a very safe pick. I could also see a Jonathan Taylor pick, but there are some injury concerns there. Here, I'm not too excited about Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson in the third round. I'm more of a late round QB guy, and for that reason, we're going James Cook. Kyron Williams is also a good pick here. I trust Buffalo's offense a little bit more. I think the Rams are going to regress a little bit, and that might mean more touches for Kyron. But I liked how James Cook played last year. I think the Bills will continue to be good, um, et cetera, et cetera. Here, I think we're probably safe with someone like James Conner, workhorse running back. Is going to get a lot of touches. I could see a Marvin Harrison Jr. pick here. It's a little bit more speculative. Same thing with Tyrone McMillan. I had DK last year. I just don't think he's going anywhere particularly good. Obviously, some injury concerns with James Conner, but much more likely to be uh, um, a major fixture of the offense than some of the wide receivers that were available. And then similarly with Kenneth Walker, same kind of injury issues. I'm actually very bullish on Cortland Sutton. Um, I think Bo Nix is going to take another step this year. Even if he doesn't improve drastically from how well he was doing at the end of last year, I still think that's a very solid matchup. Cortland Sutton doesn't have a lot of competition for targets on the Broncos, and so I think he's going to do quite well in that role. George Pickens is a decent pick for Dallas. This is a solid high tier wide receiver too. I just don't know how he's going to do. He's proven to be very inconsistent. Maybe doesn't always have the best chemistry. I'm taking David Montgomery. I think he's going to be good. I think if the Lions replicate any sort of success they had last year, I think he's going to do very well. Obviously, this is a um, prolific offense. It's very quick. I think David Montgomery probably still has some fantasy value. Right here, honestly, if George Pickens is still on the board, that's not a ridiculous pick. I think Emeka Egbuka is solid, but I think he will be at best wide receiver two. I think in later years he probably will take over closer to the top slot. But if I'm gonna have a wide receiver two, I'd rather the guy who's been in the league for longer and has the more, shall we say, varied quarterback. I don't know. I think Emeka Egbuka is fine here, but just I don't feel the need to pick a rookie this early. Here, I don't really like J.K. Dobbins. He's going to be injured for half the season, as always. I don't really like Javonte Williams, although I do think he'll get a lot of touches. Ramondre Stevenson, again, is just the sort of guy where his production is going to be super week to week. And so if I'm going to have someone on the bench, I want the guy who's a former Triple Crown winner. I don't think he'll be obviously to that level of production this year, but Cooper Kupp, I think, is a sleeper pick. I think he's going to do well with Sam Darnold. He's a very safe target. But yeah. And now's the sort of time when you want to be going for a quarterback. And for me, I think it's probably going to be Justin Fields. I like the running threat, especially with a sort of weaker Jets offense, but I could see a Drake May pick here. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. So we can look at the roster. Oh, not pick history. Whatever. Um, now we probably do want to start looking for a tight end. Which for us, I'm liking either. Well, Jake Ferguson had some injury issues too. I think we'll go Goddard. Um, should get a reasonable number of touchdown looks. Um, yeah. What else do I need? I need defense and kicker. Oh, I already have Brock Bowers. That's why I don't need a tight end. That's not a terrible pick. Oopsie. But yeah, I like the Broncos. You can pick the Steelers here, but I like the Broncos. They were, I think, the number one defense last year. I like Surtain a lot. I think they're going to continue to be a very strong defense. I think they're going to be a very strong scoring defense. In terms of like their actual fantasy point output. I think Steelers have a chance to be better um, from a like practical perspective, but I think you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. I'll take Boswell. Had Boswell last year. I think he's going to do well again. Oh, McLaughlin was still on the board. What was up with that? Okay, whatever. This this layout is not the most helpful. I guess I should get off of average draft pick and get on to fantasy points. I don't want that. Yeah, we're just looking for additional flex players now, which means honestly, I'm gonna take Ryan Robinson Jr. I think if CMC goes down, this will be a decent bench player. And we'll just filter by flex here. Honestly, the picks down here are mostly for buy and trade value. I think Kate Otten has some pretty good upside. You're really looking at just speculative picks here because these guys are never going to start over your starters. Um, but you're looking, I think, to me at least, mostly for guys who could have a big week against weak teams or if their main targets are kind of likely to go down. Here, honestly, none of this looks awesome to me. Um, I think probably Palmer is the best option just because um, they don't really have a super solid wide receiver one in Buffalo, and that offense is pretty prolific. This is again a guy that you might very well drop later in the year. Um, and I think for my last round pick, I'll probably get a backup quarterback. Honestly, it doesn't really matter which, like, these guys are all going to perform about the same. I'm a little bit more bullish on Bryce Young than the rest of them. I think he's more of a speculative pick, and you might be able to flip him for trade value later in the season if he starts playing really well. But yeah. Um, and then, so this is the actual roster. We've got our sort of big breadwinner here, CeeDee Lamb. I think he will be a top five at lowest wide receiver. I think if I had to guess, he'll be wide receiver three again, behind Chase and Jefferson. Brock Bowers, I expect, will be tight end one again this year. James Cook, starts off our somewhat weaker running back room. We've got a guy who's probably going to be like low top 10, maybe like RB 7, 8. James Conner, same kind of situation. Like if he stays healthy, fringe top 10. I think Cortland Sutton is a sleeper wide receiver. I think he's going to be better than sort of the projection. Granted, he does have um, sort of that lower floor than maybe a running back that you would take at the same position. But I think the Broncos are a rising offense and they don't have great running backs. They don't have, you know, really good other targets. So I think Cortland Sutton's going to see a lot more action um, than maybe the analysts would conservatively predict. David Montgomery was a solid piece last year. Obviously, some injury concerns, but I think he'll be a solid piece this year. And if he's really underperforming, then you have guys like Pickens and Cup who you can fill in on the bench, or even like maybe Brian Robinson Jr. I don't know what his role is going to be. For QB, if you're not reaching for a really, really like top three QB, guys like Lamar, Josh Allen, or Jaden Daniels, I feel like Justin Fields is sort of budget Lamar Jackson slash Jaden, well, all three of those guys, budget version of those top three quarterbacks. The running threat is certainly there, and in a weak Jets offense that I think is trying to trim down the carries that like guys like Breece Hall get, guys like Braylon Allen, I think there's probably going to be a decent amount of QB run. And obviously their wide receiver room is diminished. They've still got Garrett Wilson, but no longer have Devontae Adams. So I think Justin Fields is a pretty solid fantasy QB. Certainly much more than he is a QB for your team. Goddard, solid backup tight end. Some good trade value here. We have multiple tight ends that we can flip. Yeah, this will be hopefully a late season trade. Can ship this guy off to acquire maybe some backup wide receivers, backup running backs, or even in a larger package for a more dominant quarterback if someone's really weak on tight ends. On same situation, high upside tight end was able to carry a really heavy workload when a lot of the Bucks receiving targets were injured. Don't know that he'll get as consistent of usage, but the Bucks are a pretty prolific offense. And especially with Evans and Godwin both getting older slash having some injury issues, I think there probably will be a significant role for him. Boswell, good kicker, super consistent, good leg, getting older, but should be fine. I think honestly, if I had seen McLaughlin still on the board, I probably would have taken him or Brandon Aubrey, um, guys with just absolute cannon legs. But Boswell is not a pick that I'm mad at. Palmer, pretty useless. He's probably never going to play for me, but we'll see if we can ship him off in like a trade package to someone who has like a really bad wide receiver room. Um, Obviously, the like practice draft is just other AI guys, so they're going to pick according to whatever algorithm ESPN has. Realistically, there probably will be some people who really overcommit to like the QB or the running back. and need, like a wide receiver on a bye week. So we'll see if we can ship him off for some trade value. Realistically, we'll probably dump him for, like, if this was a real draft, we'd probably dump him for a backup defense. Um, the same kind of situation with Brian Robinson. I think this is a decent bench player to have just in case CMC goes down. When CMC goes down, and Bryce Young again, some trade value. And if Justin Fields is really stinking it up, I think this is a more consistent job right here. But honestly, I think this is a solid draft. We'll show you some other draft positions, and I think they actually give you like a draft grade. So we'll look at this real quick. They gave me a A. Wonderful. Um, yeah, that's really sad strings, but yeah. So that's how to draft, or at least how I would draft from the 1.06, assuming people draft somewhat reasonably. And we'll be back at it in a minute with some how to draft at different positions, namely the 1.01, and then probably we'll do the last pick for sure, and then we'll do some middle picks if we have the time and general interest. Yeah.